Stone carving. I guess stone carving is one of the oldest known enjoyments of the old times, known to the native people. A place out in Pipestone, Minnesota, there is this red stone, better known as pipestone, that in an old wise tale many years ago, in the early times, the great maker had struck the earth with a lightning barb and turned the stone to red as a constant reminder of the red man's heart with Mother Earth. And since that time, this stone has been a very important part of that act. Not like soapstone, this being a piece of soapstone is easily carved with a knife. You can actually scrape it with your fingernail. It's extremely slick in touch. The powder is like talcum. This is soapstone, very porous piece at that. But redstone is from a settlement, maybe from a riverbed many millions of years ago. It formed layer upon layer of this settlement. As you can see, the uneven areas of settlement here had coagulated together and to make different layers packed. Some of them chordated or lines through it, which take up little microorganisms that are pressed in this. This piece is well demonstrated by two pieces here, probably of a shell, a crustacean, something that lived in the pond before settlement became very extremely hard. The hardest section of this particular rock, as you can see, is a discolored skin layer, which we call Apache chirp, and this being very rugged to the tools in which you may use on them. You'll dull the best of tools, knives, carbon bits. So we try to remove this by sawing into a safe area, which makes for easier work. What I've done is I have laid me off a pattern of a bear, and I want to cut me out a nice little bear out of this stone. So I have several pieces that I have sawed away here prior to the start of the film in order to save somewhat some time. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to saw into a piece of stone about this is about 2 inches here, and you've got to be careful, because when you get down to the lower edges where it is, that you're going to make your contact that you don't mess up and break beyond the point of reference. A few things I like to point out that I have here before we start is that one needs some way to control the powder substance from his stone. As you notice, this is just like talcum powder. It's very fine, and it is easy to just scatter. I find that in order to keep it extreme harmony within one's living area, you don't want this to be traveling around through the household. Many years ago, when I came acquainted with the carving for myself as to achieve the art, I pumped this all over the house. It's on everything. And every time I open up something, I find redstone. So you got to keep control of that. So what I've made is a device that leads to the outside and this is an air source with a fan connected on the other end to pull a vacuum. And a vacuum cleaner is not a good idea because this will clog up its vent areas, and not only that, we found that it will work on bearings within the motors. As you can see, this is well covered with it. So since I've had my vent going in the carbine, I find a great deal of harmony with me and my tools also. I can find the work area. I've tried putting nylon hoses over muffin fans and all kinds of little bag devices where you put your hands in. I'm sure that the artists in some places where this is worked every day as a object of labor, they don't worry about it as much as we do where we have to do many things in one area of shop. So this is very nice to have. I will use the modern day tools, Dremel tool better known, regular hacksaws, use regular seat clamps, I'll use dentist drills, I'll use regular bits. In the old days they used to use bone and rock and water and shells and things to dream up different tools. And I say if our ancestry had them, they would have used them also just as I will use this. So there are certain traditional ways of carving your stone according to the depth of which you want to pursue. In this case, we want to let you feel how to work your stone and not be afraid to make this attempt. In the old days, too, this was, of course, laid off with some kind of scraping device. We found that a pencil works very well. It marks real well on the stone, and it gives off a easy line to be seen. So I've marked me off a piece here that I want to try to do up a bear with. There's always some way of trying to interpret in one's mind some kind of image of something that you would transpose to your stone. In the industrial arts, maybe you had in school or some kind of art class, they explained to you, you've got to see in your object a top and a bottom, a side, end, and a front. As to sometime templates, I would use little thin pieces of paper where I have worked out some kind of idea, and I've worked that onto the stone to where I could take and transfer an image. And this is, I would say, satisfactory to one wanting to accomplish a template or something to whereby you could lay over your stone to work the piece out. So my idea is that we will have a bear, and if you're not an artist and have no perspective of being able to draw something freely, then find something in a magazine or something that you like and transpose it on here and trace around it. And then get a visual on top of what it would look like as if you were looking down. If you was looking down on your bear, you would see its nose, and you would see maybe the eyes protrude ear, and the neck would go in, and then the outer leg area, shoulder area. The stomach might be a little plump, bulge out. The back of the tail would come around, and a little nub here, and he's got a nice fat back leg. So you're looking down. Now you get the idea how you got to cut your stone in and out and around. You also got to know that about standing height, how high do you want your animal, and in what pursuit do you want his eyes, his head, his nose area, and his legs protruding in distance wise. So you rough that in. And of course you always get the walk away view, which is the rear end and a tail. And maybe if you want to add a little action to it, you can feel that this leg might be going forward and this leg on the opposite side may be going back, so as to be taking a step and giving it a little touch of maybe motion and life or something like that. So what I'm going to do now is to take this piece of stone and I'm going to cut around with the saw until I can get all the little pieces. I'm going to cut down to the neck behind the ear, and I'm going to cut down here from the nose. I'm going to cut the dip out of the back. I'm going to round off this piece here, and I'm going to bring the leg up and down, and then I'm going to bring the head underneath and cut off. And these little pieces that I have, I don't cast them into to my barrel and at my feet here. I save all the little pieces because to some of us, they're very important little pieces to be used for something else. For instance, here in my little bump off tray, I have a little buffalo. As a matter of fact, I got a twin buffalo. And the object here was to have maybe a little gifted pair of earrings or something. Unfortunately, the great maker has seen times to test one's will after a great deal of time has been spent in figuring and think he's got it whipped when suddenly a leg falls off. And that's to tell you probably that there's no use of pursuing it any further. You may find something to glue it back, but that's not really a good feeling. I'd just soon carve another one over, but it meant that we had a grain that went through the stone unseen, to where one layer laid on another and maybe a thin layer of dirt in time, and kept these two stones laid together just enough to, I'll call it dental adhesiveness, to where one's eye would not detect it. And when tapped, the stone falls apart right down through the middle of whatever you have just finished. So sometimes there's messages in these stones that transfer happiness, disappointment, pain. Great Mother Earth has seen to store all this since the beginning of time for you to experience. When the great hand said, "Let there be earth," the stone at that time had your name if you're working it in it, and says to you, "See what you can do with this, my son." So I see a turtle in this. We'll work with that. Yes, I see a bear in that one, and I see a pipe in this one. So I'll have to lay it aside for something else. Okay, let me get this roughed out, and then we can get on with the particulars of the carving. Okay, so a little time has elapsed now since the stone was once a stone with no appearance. Well, this is my bear at this point now. You begin to see maybe a little shape of a bear in here. Of course, here's his eye, his ear, and of course his nose. This is a set of feet here and a set of feet here, which will fall back, come up and go down like this. And then I got a tail area here. And I'm going to have one leg, as you can see, coming back and one leg going forward, which will look like this. And of course, he'll have an eye here, and a set of ears, and a nose here. Okay? So now, when I was pointing out earlier, you can't see the lines, I'm sure from that distance, but I have outlined what comes in, goes out, as we did here. So we've managed to keep that if we've taken this stone away from this point. So I've carried it all the way around now to right here, and so I'll start working underneath and across. Got my 2 feet laid out here, and I will grind in here and grind in here, and that'll end up being a foot here and a foot here, and I'll separate all this out in here and gradually begin to round it off. So let's take the next step. Of course, I guess it's not too late if I wanted to change this to a frog. Begin to look like one. Okay, what I've done is ground off. I thought maybe I'd let you see how a couple pieces the tools work. This is not my big grinding, this is my small. And to give you an idea, this is how it gnaws at the stone itself. I'll knock this side off here. I might make a point at this time. I just noticed it happened. There's a flat area just popped off here, a little chip that you probably can't see, but I notice here that it's flat, and it has what we say is a little indelible line here that tells me right about this eyeball level we have got a seam that has been unseen to me. So I may find that the eyeball drops off of the barrel. But nevertheless, I'm going to keep getting it, and the whole point is to show how it's done. As you see now, when we begin to get some shape into it, I'll let you take in a little of the shape giving. As you can see now, our bears begin to get a little character, and this is the thrilling part where you begin now to see something being brought out that thrills you as being a reminder of something you have envisioned now taking shape. Now to share with you a little more up to shape that we've had a little since the last interview with it. Now, I thought maybe you'd watch a few more things take shape. Don't forget, these are carbon. This is a carbon bit. This particular one is about $14 for the bit, this one bit. So you want to take real good care of your bits. Because after all, that's the tool that you're working with. There's a point here in a second or two that I'll have to refrain from the big one and start working with a smaller bit. Because it's getting down into some places now that we'll have to tackle real carefully. Of course, you have to let your tools rest occasionally. Like this one's getting a little worn. And of course, your fingers get a little tired. Get him a little fatter around the top here. Looks like he's been well fed. Ah, yes. I'll give him a nice little round rump. find that places are harder in the stone and other places. Right in this particular area is pretty hard, just like grinding teeth now. And then we run into this area right here, which is extremely soft compared with back down in this leg area. And when we were cutting this, we had to go through several hard and soft places, which you can hear with the saw. Okay, let the little cleanup time. Let you see what it looks like up to here. And then we'll change bits and move into a little closer detail bit. Look at a nice bear. And if you noticed our sucker, I call it my elephant snoot, works real well. Getting rid of all the excess. Can you imagine that all over your house? You see how fine it shoots up in there. Okay, since we've now changed the burr and gone to a round one, and we begin to address the round areas within the bear itself. I'll do a little more on it. This seems to knock off some of the rough with it. Puts a little round tone to some of the places. Can you imagine now sitting back and doing this with a stone or a rock or a piece of bone, like done in the old days? Take you quite a while to, even though this is semi-hard stone, would be a long time in knocking off a lot of these little edges. There's bound to be some pressure where this is a nice little machine here, sort of allows you to buff around at different speeds. You sort of add the shape suit yourself here and there. I gotta take something now and cut my legs out of this area in here. Now maybe I can give you an idea how start working down to even closer details with smaller tools. We're going to change to a different bit. See how little things like that will happen? Now here was a hidden area that ran across a piece of grain. You just got to be aware that these things can happen to you and not let it fruit cake you out. This has a tendency to give it some definition. This bit right doesn't screw around with you too much, so you have to be ready for it. Nice thing about this particular little drill, these very microscopic scars that could represent like hair. And you just sort of outline your I could go ahead and cut a whole lot of these little hair objects in here. Okay. Now, what I've got, I'll take another tool and start working out the smooth areas that I have. And this is all now left up to hand. So I will work this blade all around until I get the parts of barrett I want skewed out, rounded off. And these little hair lines that I put in here earlier will be in here, not knowing whether maybe it can be seen or not. As you can see now that after I polish it up a little bit now, we'll continue from that. Okay, now what we've done is finished up some of the drilling, and the next is to polish up all the unevens by scraping it real lightly with a blade until you have all these uneven and scratches in the under areas where you want to clean up. A few wrinkles doesn't hurt, it gives it somewhat of appearance, but you want to get most of the scarred areas out of it. And then, after you get through with it, scraping it all over, and in between and underneath with some kind of blade or a piece of dental tool, which I have worked with in some of the pieces that cordon on the where that I can get them or not. Then I take and I use steel wool, and it comes in a bag, and there's a fine and there's a coarse. This happens to be a pretty fine mesh here, and what I got is regular pot pan scrubbing type. You can't see the thickness and coarseness by patting. Maybe you can see that one gives much easier. This is like real fine hair. Then you sit down and you work your piece till it's pretty free of lines. Now, being this steel wool is so coarse, it's going to leave some fine scratches of its own. But it beats sandpaper, and work out all the little cracks, crevices. It doesn't take a whole lot of effort. Now this is, like I say, something you don't want to take to your part of the house that you'll be collecting a lot of dust in. Piece of fine, and this should bring a luster to the stone. That you wouldn't get with the other. Polish it real good till it feels and looks, is to you, very pleasant to touch. Slick. Nice. Being unaware that the table. Okay, now this is after I decided to take him outside here. See a little light. That's after you bathe him good with your oil and all. So there you are. Big brother of the West. Continuing on, earlier when we divided the stone into 3 pieces, one being the bear, saving a piece later for some other project. We saved one which we decided to make a pipe. So it's already in the shape which we've retrieved some of the pieces from. And I'm going to do a little more sawing on this. I'm going to break off the pieces here. I've made myself a circle at the top where I will be working from that dimensions out and around the pipe so that it will have a rounding pot-like appearance like that. Of course you can see this would be the stem, and I've laid off just about the thickness that I want the stem to be. And so now we will make these necessary cuts, and then we'll come. Now that we've taken and removed parts of the pipe, begins to take on a different appearance, more as a pipe. Some areas you will may or may not want to try to carry down to saving these pieces here or grinding them away is your choice. I don't dispose of my little pieces. From that I will use somewhere along the line something else. Maybe earrings or little owls or little birds or something. Okay, now the critical part. If we don't get our bowl in now and the stem area, then we haven't wasted a lot of time in the pipe. So we want to get an area now where we bowl this hole and our bowl area, so if the pipe should crack, then we do it now with the least amount of work that has been put into it. So now we will bow our holes. Okay, now we have taken and bowed our hole in the top and in the rear section, and inside this big hole we've made another little hole in the center of it. This hole approximately goes somewhere in the depth of that deep, and then from here into the pipe at about here there is a real small hole about the size of this lead, and likely you can see that the hole is right there at the bottom of this pipe and the two meets. So we have achieved now the hard part, in a sense that you don't want anything to happen to your structure after. You do it beforehand. I had a little chip to fall out here on the corner when I'm boring this hole here. So now I won't be so frightful of the things that I'll have to do to it. Next I'll take and enlarging the bowl size on the top somewhat, and I'll start the shaping. We have now rendered our corners, a lot of it. We're knocking off big pieces, trying to form the shape of the pipe in which we would like to end up with, trying to center up those portions. As you may see modules on the side, these modules represent extremely hard fragments within the stone. These could have been little animals or minerals that have formed in this rock formation. They're extremely hard, and I'm using a carbide tip which is now gnawed and rolled the corners off on the bit to give you an idea how hard it is. So I'll just have to leave those as I go along, openly, just to get the portions that's half as hard. Meanwhile, looking to make sure that I find no hairline cracks or anything that may cause me trouble later on. So now you begin to get to see more or less the shape of the pipe. What we're doing now, we're taking out all the deep scratches and working the stone down into more and more detail as we go. This is pretty heavy rasp. It's not as smooth, so it does need quite a few scars and scratches. Being that I'm planning on putting the stem that'll fit flush against the pipe here, I would like to have it as near squared off as possible. Next I'll take a small scraping device. If you're fortunate again to have a dentist or a surgeon that can supply these throwaways, you can add enough sharpness enough to get back to do your special tools for things that you want to add to your supply of fixtures. In this pipe particularly, there's an area right in this rock that has a great deal of hard places, extremely hard, and the knife will hardly budge it. And when you scrape into it, it leaves a metallic finish after you scrape across. Now this will be a caramel looking. When you get to the fine finishing and smoothing it out, it'll be a caramel looking pattern going through this like a piece of wood with grain. And this should finish up real nice, giving it a texture. Next we take the coarse steel wool and we start working out our heavy scratches. Usually you can tell with these scratches, the heavy ones, because the dust from the pipe will accumulate in those cracks and give it a lighter color. And not sure whether the camera can do it now, but right in here you begin to see this marble effect from those hard places that we had earlier. This may be something that you'll just would like to sit down and do in your leisure when you're watching or doing something else. Just sit and polish for hours at a time until it's very pleasant to the feel and where you don't see little pit marks and scrapes and scratches. Now I have another grade of the steel wool I work in next. Should be able to put a real fine sheen with this. Sometimes I like to test it with a little moisture. This gives me an idea of just how pretty it is and how much rubbing more I need to do. At this point, I've taken and gave it a little bath, washed it off real well, and now I'm examining it to see if I have any hairline cracks. Usually when you lay it in the water and leave it a while, if there's any hairline cracks that have been produced, you'll find it absorbs water, and at that point you'll be able to tell whether or not you have something to worry about later. I can see right here coming up across this bowl a very minute hairline crack. Now, if great care is taken with the pipe by the one who either smokes it or if it's to be a set-up item, this bowl should last. If the crack had been in this area around the stem area, I may have come greatly concerned, but sometimes you'll catch little hairline cracks like that form. It doesn't seem to go any further than there. I can either shorten the pipe down to a certain point or leave it. I will set my pipe aside and pick myself a piece of wood that I feel will make a nice stem. I can either pick on, this is walnut, or I can pick on a piece of cedar, or I can pick on a piece of oak. Something that can support the weight of this or support the strength that I need. So what I've decided I will do, I think I would like to try one from this walnut strip. So now we'll do our pipe measurements, and pick a stem that seems to be comfortably in length and start its formation. Taking my piece of walnut, sliced off what I thought would be a fair square. I made an end, filed it down, trimmed the rest with a knife, brought the rest down with a small piece of sandpaper. And now I will take the pipe and we'll seat that in that. Bring it up snug. Okay. And now what we'll do, we'll position our pipe the way we want it, and we'll start with a little hand carving and bring the pipe off and shaping it like the stem that we would like to have. Now in walnut carving, you have to watch the grain. Usually the rule of the thumb is that you usually don't carve anything towards yourself. There are occasions when you just can't help it. And this is a reverse. Now once I can get this squared away to match the element of my pipe, I will pull this out and work to this edge right here. And notice now that it started almost to get into the wrong grain. It split a little bit on me right here, but we're able to recover nicely. So we have to watch what you're doing. Keep your mind on your carving. Alright, the next extremely hard part is burning your hole with a little rod that you heat up. What I've got is extremely, well, not extremely per se, but very small rod. And you heat it up and you start working your end through till you can keep burning and twisting and forcing it till you can pass the rod all the way through. This is where I've more or less, let's try this smooth end here. Oh, I hope I hadn't lost it already. There we go. And the skill is there, not to come out someplace you don't want to. After that, you tapering, get the shape that you want, and with your knife, X-Acto, whatever you're working with, you start carving out your little pieces that you would like for it to shapen up. I kept sawing. I'll take this file now and work off all my edges and all my grooves where my hand saw worked it, and I'll keep that all going till I can more or less get my shape. Keep it pretty straight too. I decided whether I want my pipe to droop or whether I want my pipe to go up or down, or I guess that wouldn't be too sad with that. Okay, now that we've set for another few hours, just trying to get the scratches and the shape into our stem. Still got some minor scratches here and there. buffing it down to a nice slick finish. Like a steel wool. And if this resembles somewhat of maybe a horn, now we take our pipe with our stem inside. We begin to see somewhat of the finished product coming up. Now I can either work these edges down here a little bit. I'm not too happy right in here. What I'll probably do is take me some kind of maybe a leather ring or something and put in between this crack to give it some cushion, and by cutting it around gently, because the only time it'll come off when glue it onto the wood part, so that it'll give it sort of a cushion effect and pushed up snug. Don't let your grain fool you. Mess you up. Every now and then you'll slip it over and grab the wrong direction, and probably get a surprise, especially when they want it. I like to keep a portion if I can. Yeah, that looks pretty close. Okay. What I'll do now is buff out all those heavy wrinkles and bring it back up to the luster I had before I decided to touch it up. It seems to fill in now. So what I'll do is to seal up some of my wood with some tung oil. I like to use tung oil for a lot of things because it's the applique of it. It's a nice sealed, lustrous finish. This dry, this won't be as quite as shiny. Usually I take and rub it in pretty good. And then I'll set it up and let it dry. I don't find that this gets too sticky on my hands either. Now later I'll take in put on that a little more, probably another day. While that's drying, I now will proceed to work on parts of the pipe that I want to get to. After you get your pipe, you may or may just want to leave it plain. But I have taken and scratched on with a sharp object some trees, some plant life things, just more or less give you an illustration of some things that I thought would look good on it. Of course, up to the individual how in detail they would like to carry that. Now what I'll do is get some buffalo fat, rub the pipe down like I did the stem. In the next sequence of stone carving, I like to do a little different approach to a pipe by carving a little more fancier and more traditional than what we had before. What I've done, I've selected already now a piece of stone, made me a rough drawing of some idea of the physical size and actual outline of what I liked or close to. And taking this stone and already, for sake of time, I've already dissected the pieces. This will be used later for some other project. Of course, we'll find some use for whatever's out of that, leaving a nice chunk to work with here now to match our pipe. Be more in a stage like this. So what we'll do now, we'll start segments of the. Alright, roughing out a feature of what would be the face outline in comparisons to my drawing, the two eyes, the nose, the mouth area. Now what I'll do is to work out the outer edges, bring him back away from the eyes to repel the nose more forward. So I'll be taking off all the thickness down into this area till I can get the nose to retrude from the block. Alright, as you see, begin to take on a little more claiming of the face features, and I went in depth to round off the face area, this face area from the block. And now I'll try to add to that a little more to get you an idea how we take away you can gradually now see some of the facial taking shape. I failed to mention different type burrs used at this point. This is more of a block burr. Now I'm going to a pointed tip carbide, and I'm going to lay out now these areas where things get tighter around the lip area, mouth, chin, and sort of add some detail. Now what we'll have is probably now move to a much smaller bit, almost invisible to the camera, and we'll work in our small details, lip area. As our facial features now are slowly taking, now I'm taking a drastic jump ahead by going to great detail in my face here when I haven't even bowed the hole for the pipe or the stem or rounded off in the edges or anything. So I'm taking a chance on working backwards this time, that I won't have any bad mistakes, but I did want to make sure that the head was going to achieve its ultimate appearance. Soften up the tone of this in the head, but changing the bit to give it a more pleasant appearance, as far as not being too skeleton-like. What I'll do now is go to a much different tip now, and something I can express the face lines in, and we'll come back. Now I'm going to go to a round burr. decided I would now go to a even different set of burrs that will put a more of a line effect. This is an angle burr, about 45 degrees. This will allow me to skew around some of these marks. Make sure that you give both sides pretty well even, looking in. And be careful not to drag your burr out here on the surface, because now we're getting down to where we would like not to make too darn many mistakes. Sometimes you have to allow your bit to be a little longer out of the chuck in order to make some of these valleys here. Some of this I'll prefer to work by hand. Okay. What I will do now is move to a larger now, as far as the reference to the picture, do we feel that we sort of the background's not too hot here? I could have had a white background, maybe do it this way, where maybe one could see if it's taken on the sort of the appearance that we're looking for at this time. Well, let me take off some more and be back with you on it as we go along. Full circle now. Have a little gambling time now. We figure we better go on and bow a few holes. So what we're going to do now is to mark off bow the hole for the smoker and one for the rear. And just in case it bad luck should occur, I'd like to give some reference as to where we're heading for here. chucking a bit up tight in the drill in order to allow it to slip if it catches. You may see grab every now and then, try to hold it so the camera can see. Occasionally check, see where you are. Okay, we're looking fairly deep into the bowl. Looks pretty good. Now we'll tap into the rear. This takes a little different guesswork. Moving it around to make sure I'm heading in the right way. So far it looks good. Okay, maybe just a tad more. And it looks partial. Okay. Now that we have a nice hole in two ends, comes the next idea. What I'd like to do is to bow up to about right here, and for safety's sake, I'd like to make sure I get somewhere there thusly nearby, so I mark my area, which will put me pretty close to where I want to go. Now, this is quite a long bit, and it will wiggle and guide its own way somewhat if you force it. Every now and then you have to pull it out because it packs, and you have to sort of pull out the old packing. Keep getting. Fight you. Okay. Now, if all wonderful things happen, we should be able to get an idea where this bit has come to rest. Alright. Should strike oil here. Right underneath this. So again, we would like to take our tape off and remark it for safety's sake. So about right here. Oh, hey. Okay. Alright. Pretty close to our marks. Better to check and be sure you're on. Evidently I've hit something pretty hard down there. Now let's go back in this one more time. Usually whenever you meet, the two meet, you'll see a little puff of smoke come up out of this end. This is when things get exciting. There's something extremely hard right in here. Has been wondering. Now, they say the grain maker intended for you to make the first time. Yep, we're well within the ballpark. Should be there. Okay. One more check or two here to see if the guidance system is still working. Okay. Now what I might do here at this stage of the game is just take the last tap. I have another drill bit easy to keep handy. Now that's it. We'll work. Back to this. Okay. Got the holes. We need now to start doing some shaping on the edges here. The edges off now. We've got our hole. Seems to be breathing well, and that all worked out well. Okay. Do is taper this bowl in, bring this head down and around in that area like this, and then bring our hair back, something similar to that right there. Then we'll come on back and connect it right here. And then I'll have some other etchings that'll fall in here. And that will pretty well round that off. So I'll bear the noise now, and I'll cut off some of this, and we'll refer to it off and on occasionally. What I do now is to even up some of the places. Just make sure they're flat, and some of the saw marks out. I've taken down quite heavily in the areas here now, and this takes considerable amount of time due to the fact that if you're going to do any kind of inlay, you've got to leave enough skin that when you take the layer away, it still will have something left. As for instance, right here I want to do something, here I need to do something, and I need to indent it now and then take away all the areas that I want to leave raised. So I have to be real careful how far down I'm going to take these corners now in order for everything to overlap as to reference in the rest of the stem. I've yet got to take down some more around the pipe edge. So what I'll do now, I'll start laying out these indentive marks and decide what parts of those that I want to express. But the thing was, now was the time to true up the rear piece, this top piece, and more or less just square it away. Usually you do all this first, We did, decided to do it a little backwards this time. Okay, what we've done now is centered off the back in a circle so we can have some kind of guidelines on the edges. Rolled off most of the corners, peel back on sections here on the indentions where I'm going to take and bring the hairline into the lower edge. So now we got mostly our leaf area and indention areas, so that'll take some time now just to start dressing those items up. But it seems to be really coming along nicely. Got a few heavy places here that are guides that we need to take down, but it's not doing too bad. Now we've taken out this section, added in, brought in this area here, enhanced that. So we're working now more or less from the front towards the rear and trying to get some idea now. We brought the wrinkles out we had here, enlarged the hole in the top somewhat. So now it's just a matter of just etching a little at a time. This is the long part. Takes a little longer to do this. I'm doing a little polishing now. This should have highlighted the facial, sanded down some on the upper part of the pipe here and some of the areas down in here. I'll dress a little more and then we'll review. Now I have rounded off all the edges in the back, underneath, the sides. Now you begin to see the ripple effect we were speaking of earlier in these areas. Now what I'll do, I'll scarf these off in little X's here in a minute. What we did, we added some hair in this area here, the head, little stripes on that. Done some hatch work underneath the bottom, around the sides, sort of an X marks. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and ride the camera on and mark these. shaping it up very nicely now. We're getting all the little things that we want. Next is to sit down now and work some real fine sandpaper over these places to bring that bone effect or scale effect down to a smooth finish. Careful not to get into the other portions that you already have done. See how we're doing here. So now what I believe I'll do is set a few more minutes. I'll rub all these little cracks down and crevices with this 400 sandpaper, which will give it that nice, smooth, lustrous finish. And that's something that just flat takes time. Right now, the way that up to this point, we got pretty close to 16 hours in this. Most of it has been scratching and picking the sandpaper. Continuously rolling and looking at seeing if that's what you want to stop with. From hence whence we started, see how we're closer. Drawing now resembles the finished product. And of course, that's the whole idea, is to try to bring in reality somewhere, some closeness to what you have in your head at the time. Well, now that we've cleaned it, sanded it, polished it somewhat, the end results is faith of the old way pipe. Seen this in a museum, and sort of captured my fancy. So there it is. Hope that some of this has been informative. It's been a pleasure making the pipes and all the other little artifacts that came from the pieces made that would be able to get you a chunk of some material and be able to pursue the same fun that I have doing this.